Entomology 322 debate.
Howdy, my name is Paul McMurray, and I am defending the black horsefly, Tabanus atratus.
Howdy. My name is Ty Malachek. The scientific name of my insect is Chrysops discalis. My insect's common name is the deerfly. Today, we are arguing which of the two are the worst biting pest.
My opening statement. The black horsefly is one of the true flies, dipterans, and falls under the family Tabanidae, which are the deer and horseflies. As with all dipterans, black horsefly is a holometabolous insect and thus undergoes complete metamorphosis. This is characterized by life stages wherein the insect undergoes complete transformation in terms of morphology, starting off as an egg, emerging as a larvae that is a maggot in the case of flies, transitioning into a silk cocoon that is the pupae, and emerging as a winged adult. The black horsefly is a fly of the genus Tabanus, or the deer or the horseflies, and is infamous for its painful bite. The female adult fly's mouthparts differ from the male's in that the female requires a blood meal to produce viable eggs, making them anautogynous. They will take blood meals through a biting mechanism that is reported to be extremely painful. The painful bite is a result of morphological adaptations to the stylets of the female adult fly's mouthparts. The stylets are long and sclerotized, which results in sharp appendages that pierce the host's skin and allows the female to sponge up the pooling blood. The black horsefly gets its name from its characteristically black coloration. Both deer and horseflies are reported of being able to mechanically transmit certain bacteria such as anthrax and the bacterium that causes Lyme disease, and thus are indicated as being very potentially hazardous biting pests.
Opening statement. Deerflies belong to the family Tabanidae. Adults range in size from about a quarter to a third of an inch long. Their wings are clear with dark bands or patches, and their bodies are gray or light brown with some yellow and black striping. Deerfly larvae develop in the mud and aquatic muck that occurs along the edges of bodies of water, such as ponds. Female flies lay batches of 100 to 800 eggs on vegetation that stands over water. Larvae hatch and fall below, where they feed on decaying organic matter or small organisms in the environment. Deerflies generally have a 1-year life cycle. Female deerflies are persistent blood feeders, while the males feed on pollen and nectar from plants. The female deerfly bite involves 2 mouth parts, blades that the fly uses to cut the skin. Females use knife-like mandibles and maxillae to make a cross-shaped incision, then lap up the blood. Their bites can be painful, but many bites are not noticed at the time, especially if the victim is distracted. Deerflies feed on a variety of mammals, including humans, pets, livestock, and deer. Deerfly females will continue to return to the host and bite repeatedly if their feeding behavior is interrupted for some reason. For this reason, deerfly flies tend to be more of a nuisance to society than anything. They are irritating and bothersome, and other than having a bite that hurts, pose little threat to society. The deerfly is similar in size and appearance to the common house fly, but the distinguishing characteristic of a deerfly is large, patterned gold or green eyes, and their antennae are usually longer than their head.
Are you finished?
Right?
Yeah. So, given the opening statements that we just received, I want to present my first rebuttal to Lewis. So, my fly, the black horsefly, is just that, a horsefly, and characteristic of the horse and deer flies is their potential to bite bovines and equine mammals, and so they both bite humans. So my question for Lewis is, what are the host's preferences, and where does the where does the where does the deer fly prefer to bite? Because they virtually bite the same hosts, although of course they have preferences for deer and horses respectively. But I'm wondering where where the Chrysops discalis prefers to bite.
The deer fly, in response to your question, prefers to attack a moving host, which is probably why it continues to return to the same host if feeding is interrupted. This is also why the deer fly is so bothersome, because it keeps returning to the same host. Furthermore, deer flies target high on the host's body, such as the head or the neck. You can't prevent them from biting you by staying away from blue colors. Some people have found that while working out in the yard or hiking, if they put a feather or fern-type plant on your hat, you will distract the flies. While you might look funny, this allows you to work and hike in peace. Here is my question for you, Paul. How do you prevent horse flies from biting you?
So as you mentioned, deer flies have a unusual attraction to the color blue, and as such, a lot of people use blue feathers to attract the flies to different locations of their body. However, and so the 3D question you're asking here is that how do you prevent the fly from biting you? And that can be answered by two mechanisms. One is preventing the fly from actually biting the person, and the other is just eliminating the fly altogether. So the problem with eliminating the fly altogether is it requires pesticides, and the larvicides that are normally used to eliminate fly populations aren't necessarily proven to work, especially given the fact that tabanids lay their eggs on semi-aquatic to aquatic substrates, and thus the insect repellent or the larvicide would drain into the aqueous or aquatic reservoir, resulting in pollution. Now, preventing them from biting you is another story. If you use the tabanids will bite in spite of the insect repellent, and so it's been proven that insect repellent doesn't work. So to answer your question, in order to prevent them from biting you, you need to use those traps that you just mentioned. The scientists have used traps where they're literally just a canvas of blue tarp, or a canvas tarp, so to speak, that's colored blue, or malaise traps to capture the flies, thus preventing them from biting. My second rebuttal for you, Lewis, is given like all the characteristics of our flies, for all intents and purposes, our flies are virtually the same, save for the preferences of biting hosts. So the horseflies prefer non-moving targets, whereas the deer fly prefers moving targets. However, besides that, they're virtually the same biting pest. What sets the deer fly apart from the horsefly?
In response to your question, Paul, the deer fly vectors more diseases. There is evidence that deer flies in western U.S. are involved in transmission of tularemia, which is also known as deer fly fever or rabbit fever. Deer flies are minor vectors of tularemia. In equatorial African rainforest, a filarial parasite that causes liausis is transmitted by deer flies that inhabit those areas. Repellents and chemical insecticides do very little to deter biting deer flies and hurt the environment and surrounding habitats. Now, Going into closing arguments, Paul will give his closing statements, I believe. Yes.
So, given the above information, we can say that deer flies spread more or vector more diseases. However, for the most part, the two biting pests are virtually the same. I want to say that the horsefly is equally liable as mechanically transmitting bacterial diseases that can be immediately lethal, such as anthrax, and is a huge economic burden on bovine animals, that is, livestock, such as livestock, in the form of horses and cattle and whatnot. And they can cause economic damages via exsanguination and anemia of that said cattle. In conclusion, the horsefly more or less is roughly the same, just as bad as the deer fly.
My closing statement, I think the deer fly definitely has the worst bite. The females use knife-like blades to make a cut on your skin to get your blood. Ouch. Not only does it hurt, but they go for moving targets, which are harder to get land on. Furthermore, they aim for places located high on the host, such as the head and the neck. Being bitten in the neck or the head is way worse than being bitten in the leg, or on the leg, rather. Furthermore, swatting it away with your hand will only agitate deer flies and make them return over and over again. You can distract them, by not wearing blue or by wearing a blue feather on your hat while working outside. You might look funny, but if it keeps you from being bitten, then it's worth it. For the reasons stated above, and because deer flies are known to transmit more diseases than horse flies, I believe that deer flies have the worst bite. Thank you for watching our debate.
Thank you.